Hello, it's Gadget UK here again. As you can see, a Nintendo 60... No, it's not. Hello, it's Gadget UK here again. As you can see, a Nintendo GameCube. Yeah, you could be forgiven for thinking this is the same one I showed on my channel previously, but it's not. I mean, you can see how dirty it is. It's got some muck on there. It's kind of yellowed. It's still got the covers underneath. That's nice. I think well, two of the covers. Lacking the back one there. Actually, I think they're always lacking that one when you use the gameplay player. I could be wrong. We'll take a look at mine. Hang on a sec. Yeah, so here's the one that we did in the previous video. Now, the interesting thing, can you see it's yellowed slightly? This has been in a dark environment. You can see there, look at that flap, that's grey. That one's sort of a creamy colour, because obviously it had a memory card in there when it's been sat in the sun. But the interesting thing is, despite having brought this back to like a grey, it has sort of gone yellow again, and this has been in storage in a dark environment, actually completely encapsulated in a box. So yeah, there you go. On some of these plastics the yellowing does reoccur. I'm not really sure what would cause that actually, because it isn't just about UV. That proves that it isn't just UV that causes these to yellow. They can be in a completely dark environment and they still yellow, or at least they re-yellow. So Retro Bright is not 100% fix. You can see I've got the Game Boy Advance player on the bottom here, so we'll take a look at that in a future video and do a teardown of that. But anyway, that's mine. So coming back to this one, yeah, it's going to need cleaning up and stuff. From what I understand, this is described as faulty, so I've got no idea where the fault's going to be. Probably the laser, I would think. It's probably going to be not reading discs, but we'll just give it a try. So I'll connect it up to the TV. I'll try it with an original game. We'll get Resident Evil 0 in there or something, give that a try and just see what happens. But regards yellowing, you can see the clear difference there, can you see? Between the tops of these. You know, this one was retrobrighted, that one hasn't been retrobrighted. So yeah, I would suggest that that's still got its same lovely dark sort of blue purplish sort of colour to it, whereas this one's a bit more affected by the sun. I mean, it could just be dirt, but there is a contrast. I hope you can see that. There's contrast between the two. Look how much bluer this looks compared to this. This is really dark. So this is very interesting. You can see I've got the video cable plugged in the back here. The light's on. I'll just point you at the TV if I can. And if we go through the three SCART channels, we have no picture. So yeah, this is a different type of fault actually. And I think actually, just thinking back to the eBay advert, I think that was how it's described actually. I'd forgotten because it's been so long since I purchased this, but I think it said no video. So yeah, we've got some sort of different type of failure than I was expecting here, which, yeah, that's interesting. It's going to give me a bit of a challenge. Might not be able to fix this yet, don't know. Let's tear it down, I think, and just see what's going on inside. And the other clue that there's a little bit more going on here than meets the eye, you can see we've got power. Look at the position of the laser. It's not seeked back to the track 0 down here. It should, one of the first things it should do is, well, either bob up and down to detect the disc and then move back here. If we just pull the flap, I think that's the switch there that I'm pressing. It might be somewhere further down to the back, I'm not sure, but yeah, no signs of life at all actually. Maybe there's something wrong with the voltages near. Maybe we've got a missing voltage or something like that. So I'll just remove these flaps. I don't think there's anything under there. No, there isn't. So it's just the 4 screws in the corners, and you can see, we need one of these game bit type adapters there. It's the same size as an N64, PC Engine, Mega Drive carts, SNES. One screwdriver fits all. Oh my goodness, look at the corrosion down there. Can you see that? We've got lots of corrosions got inside this. I mean, it could be I don't think the battery will have leaked. That type don't leak, but there's certainly corrosion. There's corrosion on the shielding. Can you see this down here? It's not quite as dirty as that last one was. Got lots of fluff here at the back on these switches. Yeah, thinking about it, that's the lid switch, isn't it? So we can now test it. Just hold those while we power it on, and just see what happens with the laser. I want to see if it's moving at all. Anyway, is it trying to detect a disc? Is it move up and down, etc.? Yeah, nothing at all. If I switch this on, there's no signs of movement here whatsoever. Switch it off. Let's just try and move it a little bit down there, just see if anything happens then. Could be like super dirty switches on the back there. We can test connectivity of those in a sec. But you get video, that's the other thing. If it was just something like that, we would have video, and we're not getting video. Let's just check the channels again. No video whatsoever. Okay, let's tow it down a little further then. So we'll remove the screws holding the controller and memory card sockets here. If memory serves, I think they're quite long screws, these actually. I think there's 4. Yeah, and this front piece here, if memory serves, just kind of clips off, I think. There we go, like that. In fact, we should flip that off before we start removing the screws, really. Just carefully pull that ribbon out of there. There's loads of corrosion here. This is going to be a corrosion job, I think, this one. But I suspect it's going to have a faulty laser as well. Could be game over for this if there's too much corrosion in there. So we'll unscrew the screws here that hold the fan assembly in position. There's 2 of those. So I think, yeah, and the back just clips off there. Yeah, there's loads of corrosion on there as well. We can disconnect that there like that. Yeah, I think the next thing to do is to go around the circumference of this, around the edges, and remove all these volume screws here. I think that holds the drive unit on top. I've got all the screws out. The drive just literally pulls up. So you can see straight away here, this is enlarged. I think why this is perhaps not working here. This looks awful. I'll macro in on that in a minute. I don't know if we've got any burnt traces there, or we've certainly got some really dark green and light green stuff here, which suggests something has disintegrated. I don't know. A little bit of corrosion around there, but sorry, you can't quite see there, but that's actually not too bad. It's going to be a question of what's under this heatsink, I think. But the back end of the board, if I just show you around here, we've got a ram down there, haven't we? The back end looks okay. Those caps look okay. Yeah, if it's confined here, and let's just hope clean-up work might be able to bring that bit back to life. It might be alright, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it depends on how bad the connections are to this flex ribbon connector here. 1 or 2 of the pins look a bit greeny grey there. And of course, we've not seen the underside yet. I wonder if we can just get this board out, or are we going to have to undo the screws holding the heatsink on to release it? I can't quite remember. I don't think I've had the board out of one of these entirely yet. Yeah, so I unscrewed those. The heatsink's not come off completely. It may be just stuck on with thermal pads and things. But then the board just does lift out. It takes a little bit of force. You can see the underside looks okay there. I'm not seeing any corrosion damage on that side whatsoever, actually. It looks super clean. We've still got 2 screws here. I'm guessing there must be some sort of power regulation board or something down here on the bottom. And obviously the connections, the expansion as well, but I mean, there might not be any power regulation stuff, but I don't know. Let's just have a look. So that piece of shielding comes off. Yeah, there we go. So I suspect, yeah, we've got a fuse down there, don't we? But that's obviously okay, otherwise we wouldn't have the LED lit. But nevertheless, we needed to strip it down to that level anyway, and you can see, the corrosion has got right into here as well, but not onto this board. So I think the next thing to do is just have a clean with a cotton bud and some IPA very gently down here. You're not going to be able to see much because we're so far away here. Yeah, can you see that's looking a lot better already, actually? It may have had a spill or something, I don't know. Try to be careful, because what we don't want to do here is lose pads and components and things like that. Yeah, okay, well I'll continue cleaning up here, maybe get the fiberglass pen onto it if I need to, and I'll report back in a minute when I've had a good close visual inspection of that. I mean, we're going to need some reflowing because those look awful there, those 2 components, capacitors or inductors or whatever they are. you can see it does look like predominantly dirt actually. So I'll just go over this area with the fiberglass pen here, gently. Can you see that's cleaning up already? With special focus on these components here, because obviously they're going to be part of the problem as well. Sorry, I know the camera is wobbling while I'm trying to do this. And then what I might do is, once I've cleaned this up, is get a bit of flux on there and try and reflow these 3 or 4 components here, maybe this one over here as well, but it's looking okay actually. It looks like predominantly dirt with some oxidisation on the solder. Yeah, it does feel like dirt actually. Maybe it's had some coffee or something spilt on it. It's like almost like a solid type of thing rather than rust. It's bizarre. So I've got some IPA on a toothbrush here, and I'm just going to go around with a toothbrush there actually, because it's just a bit more vigorous than you know, and the little nylon strands there can get in between the components. That's looking a lot cleaner already. Can you see that? It's looking a lot cleaner around there. Yeah, there might be hope for this yet. I mean, this may not be the damage. This may have occurred after something else has failed and it's been put in storage. But then again, as a result of the corrosion, something could have failed further into the board, you know, underneath the seat sink. We haven't gone under there yet to see what state that's in. From what I remember, you don't need anything connected to that ribbon there, and the system will work. You're just lacking the battery and obviously the controller ports. But yeah, I might just give that a go as it is now, just to see what difference that makes. So it's just the same, actually. Although we did get a response on the TV, i.e. when I switch it on, the TV switches to a specific channel, but then I don't get a display. So I'm just going to remove this little regulation board here. I'd like to have a look on the underside of it actually. I've checked the fuse there, obviously that's okay, and as I say, I don't think we'd get the LED on if that fuse was blown actually. If you get one of these that's completely dead, it's going to be that little white fuse down there. It's looking pretty clean. There's something that looks a bit sticky here, but I think that's just like a conformal coating. Anyway, I'll inspect it with some magnification on both sides. Just have a quick measure around what I can. Just see if there's any more fuses on there, but I suspect maybe not. I think it's just that one main fuse. There may be fuses on the main board there. That might be the next thing to have a look at. Yeah, it took a fair bit of manipulation to slide that off, but as you can see, it's off. So I'll get this on the ESD mat and I'll have a closer inspection. Yeah, so I'm totally in the dark with this because I don't see a set of schematics out there for these, and you know, in terms of voltages and things, I'm not sure what's where. There might be some pinouts somewhere that show what voltages pass from the regulation board to this top board here. But you know, I've continued cleaning up here, and this area here, can you see? There's a break between the connection to this resistor here and this trace. I've scratched a bit of the copper off there and measured, and it's open circuit. You know, we've got a gap here, but there's also, I don't know, you can just about see, there's like a pad to the right, maybe a test point or something, and that's gone. But you can sort of see the edges of it. It's almost like maybe that's going to a different layer on the board. So you never know, we could have a big problem here unless I can expose enough there, join it back up to the 2 places. In the first instance, I'm just going to put a piece of Kynar here and join it up to that resistor and give it another try. I don't think that's going to solve it. I suspect this has had a fault and then been dumped in a skip or stored or something somewhere damp, you know, and then this secondary corrosion has probably occurred. I think that's probably what's happened. It might have a faulty DVD laser yet, but I mean, it'd be nice if we could just get this to show some signs of life. Whilst the corrosion was quite extensive here, it seems alright. I mean, I could always remove this connector. The flex ribbon that goes in here has got some awful looking edges to the flex ribbon, and there's a few dark grey pins here, so ultimately it would benefit from some sort of new connector here, but maybe I can clean that up with some work yet. But yeah, let's just try a wire on there and see what that does. So we'll just try and clean this up. I'm thinking actually it might need the DVD unit connected. I honestly can't remember how these things power up, whether it'll power up without the DVD drive. So we'll connect that up as well. Well, it's not really a DVD drive, is it? It is and it isn't. It's kind of like of that standard, but the discs are a lot smaller capacity, you know. Is it 3-inch instead of 5-inch discs? I forget. But anyway, yeah, we'll clean that with, you can't really see that, can you? A bit of IPA first. He's not really getting the marks off though, so I'll go over that with a fiberglass pen really carefully, because what we don't want to do is damage this, and I probably won't go sideways like that. I would go that way like that, put it on a flat surface and go up and down them, well, down them, you know, away from the ribbon there. Anyway, we'll clean that up and we'll connect the DVD drive and we'll give it a try. So at the moment this GameCube is indeed for spares only, I think. I think we've got a logic board fault, and I don't think it's just the corrosion. I think something else has occurred with this. You can see I've done some pinouts here. As you look at this connector on the board here, so that top connection there, that's joined to ground, so the third and fourth are joined to ground. Hang on. Yeah, that bottom one there is joined to ground, third from the end here. So those are all grounds. The grounds come across. You've got ground on the first one on that side, third one, the fourth one, and the two here, just before you get to the last two. So you can see we've got 12 volts, 5 volts. 5 volts are joined together. 1.92 volts, 3 connections on this side here. 1.92 volts, and they go across to the 4 connections on this side, 1.92 volts. I think those are used by the GPU and the CPU, actually, the 1.92 volts, and then you've got 3.43 volts on the second connector down on each side there. And those all measure correctly, and I did a bit of research, and I think looking at someone's produced like a replacement for this, and that's exactly what you should get. So if I just put the camera there, you can see the voltages as I measure these. I'll show you. I'll do the 3.42 first, or 3.3 it should be roughly. There you go, 3.43, and then the ones down here are 1.9, you can see that, 1.917, 5 volts on the end down here. And then we've got 12 volts, I think, is on that one there. So yeah, all the voltages are there. So it has to be a problem with the logic board, actually, either the GPU, CPU, or RAM. Yeah, so it does get warm after it's been running for a minute or two, but that's correct. This should get warm. Now we could have a bad BGA solder point there on one of the chips. You know, there's a few different ways of dealing with that. You could try and heat them up, but you know, with hot air. But you need quite a high temperature, and you really need to preheat the underside of the board. An ideal way to do it really is with one of those IR beds. You know, it bakes the underneath of the board with infrared light, which can penetrate and heat from the underside whilst you heat the top side with hot air. Yeah, there's no chance I'm going to be reballing the chips on this, no way. It's out of my capabilities, I think. Well, if I had the right equipment I could maybe do it one day, but yeah, here at home it's not the sort of thing I could do, I don't think. So I mean, we could just leave it for a while to see if you know, if we've got a bad BGA connection, because these things, when they get super warm, when they've been on for maybe half an hour or something, or an hour, if you've got a bad solder point, one of those little balls of, you know, the solder's cracked there underneath, you may find it starts to join back up again. So yeah, I could just leave this for an hour and then come to switch it off and on, you know, connect the drive up and just see what happens. You never know, it might spring to life. That would be a good indication that it is just a bad BGA connection. Sometimes pressure, you know, obviously you need to keep power off and on just to determine whether that's had any effect, but sometimes a bit of pressure can reveal a BGA fault as well. But yeah, who knows what's gone wrong with this, at what point, you know, did it fail and then get stuck into storage? Was it working up until it got moisture on there? Has the moisture contributed to the faults? You know, it's just anybody's guess, really. There's something else I can perhaps try and show you here. You might just be able to see the meter there. The voltage, yeah, you can just about see that. The wire that we fixed there, can you see that? 1.235, and it's dropping. If I measure the battery, you can't quite see this on the front as well. It's the same voltage and it's just dropping ever so slightly. When you've not got this on there, it just drops. It starts at about 1.4 volts ish, 1.3 volts, and just goes all the way down to 0, presumably because the battery's not there. As soon as you've got it connected here via the ribbon, you'll see it kind of hangs around. Or has it gone now? Let's have a look. Hang on. Yeah, it's hard to measure it. Can you see that? 1.215. It's going down a little bit. So if there is a fault there, it's on the battery. Charge circuit. Strange, it's going down. That is strange, because that battery should be a bit higher than 1.2 volts, I think. So I didn't really want to tear down my other GameCube, but yeah, let's just do a bit of divide and conquer. You can see I've disconnected the front panel there, and this is the one with the awful connections there. They've been cleaned up a little bit, but look, they're terrible. So I'm going to start by testing this. I mean, bear in mind, it doesn't even need this to boot, so this is not causing a problem. I just want to rule it out to see whether it actually works or not. Will it, can we connect a controller up? Is the time and date being held? We'll just give that a try. Yeah, so you can see the directions on the controller working alright. So that's enough for me at the moment, just to prove that actually the ribbons are actually okay. So I've disconnected the drive. I want to just remind myself what happens if you try and test one of these without a drive. Do you get any video at all? So I'll just point you at the screen. So that's with no drive at all. Let's just see what happens. Yeah, there we go. So it should be booting without the drive. So now I've got it in that state, I'm going to clip on the other drive here. This is the corroded one, can you see? Just because I'm curious to see what state this mechanism is in. Will it work? Will it read a disc? Switch it on. So if we hold the lid down, watch, can you see that? Yeah, you can see the laser. So let's just stick a disc in, and let's just see what happens. Yeah, that's working fine. I'll just switch it off and switch it on, and then it should boot straight from the disc. So, pointing you at the screen there, sorry we're at an extreme angle, and my arm's in the way a little bit, but you can see that is actually working. So, we know we have a good optical unit on this actually. This whole mechanism, despite the corrosion on here, does seem to be working, so it needs some clean-up work. I can clean that up later. We are indeed into the realms of the logic board, and to prove that, I think what I'm going to do next is remove my logic board here from the regulator board below and stick the other one on here, just to make sure we've not got some issue with that regulator board. Maybe there's a voltage missing or something, or maybe we've not got clean levels there or something like that. So dodgy board with the good regulator board. Yeah, so we do have a bad main board. It's not doing anything, so the regulator board is okay. So I've reassembled my other GameCube there just to make sure it's still working. And it is. I think that should be going to the Game Boy player now. Yeah. That's looking fine. At least I've not damaged that. Sweet. So what that little endeavour has just proven, it's proven that despite the bad ribbon there, that the controller ports, well, we think that all the controller ports work. So only one of the controller ports works there, and we can reset the system. I think the battery is working, so that's that. We know that this is good despite the bits of corrosion on the shield in here, so this can be cleaned up and used. And it did boot a press disc perfectly actually, so this is worthwhile. This is worthwhile in terms of the purchase really. And we also know the regulator board here is okay as well as the fan and stuff. Again, there's little bits of corrosion that would need cleaning up here, but yeah, that is working okay. And the fault is on this board. Now, I haven't shown you, but I did reflow the couple of caps and resistors around here. There's just like 2 or 3 or 4. That's not made any difference at all. Let's just pull the heatsink off again. You've got to sort of wiggle it around a bit. You can see, yeah, it comes off. So what else is there on here? Well, there's some caps here. These, I would suspect, if we were not getting any video, maybe, which we're not, but let's just say we were not getting video, but the system was behaving, i.e., you put a disc in, you pull the lid switch down, you can see some activity there with the laser, the reset button's working, but you're not getting video and audio. This is where I would be looking. I'd be looking at some of these caps here. Maybe one of the C-Sync, composite, may go through one of these. The RGB isn't going to do because there's less than 3 of the same type. If you had 3 caps there the same type, I'd suspect that they'd be coupling the RGB, but it's probably not. It's probably going direct out, and the cap's probably going the cable, I would think, on something like this. I mean, there's other things I could check here. We've got crystal down here, but that's the main crystal, I think, there. you know, there's a chance the crystals died on this, and it's, I don't know, maybe not, because these are getting super hot. I would think if there was no clock, these would not get hot. You know, all this stuff here connected to the heatsink would not generate any heat. I could be wrong. It may well, I don't know, I think you need a clock. Without a clock, nothing inside's going to be doing any processing, therefore I wouldn't expect any heat to be generated. So, this, despite the fact I can't scope that with my scope because my oscilloscope's insufficient, I think you can assume that the system clock's there, actually. We might be lacking other clocks, there might be some divisions or something going on, no idea what that is there. That might be worth checking, actually, now I think about it. But anyway, just moving around the board here, we've got, I think the real-time clock stuff is here, because we've got another crystal, and you've got a question, why would you have a small crystal like that? Well, that kind of looks like a watch crystal to me, 32 point whatever, I'll stick it up there, kilohertz. So yeah, if the real-time clock stuff had died, would the system not boot? I don't know, that's a possibility, and I can scope that, because that's going to be quite a low, it's a low frequency, 32 point something kilohertz, compared to, I don't know, lots of megahertz, I don't know how many. But more than my scope can handle, probably. So I think what you've got here is, I think you've got CPU, GPU, amongst other things. I don't think it's just the GPU, there's going to be some arbitration and all sorts of stuff going on with that, and RAM here. And I think you've got a RAM up here as well, that's NEC. The interesting thing with that, it's got a, I think it's a Nintendo part number, you know, it's obviously custom made by NEC for this. It says ARAM Dolphin was the code name for this, and you can see a DOL CPU. There we go, actually we've confirmed that's the CPU. Although that might refer to the board, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it is actually, I think that's, yeah, DOL-CPU-01. I don't think it's related to the actual chip there, I think that's the board revision, I could be wrong. But anyway, so these are BGA mounted, you know, ball grid array, so you've got a grid of dots, if you like, a matrix, you know, a grid under these, and there'll be a solder point in each single position there, and you've got a little ball of solder, and they're heated, you know, with hot air. Like I said, they heat the underside, heat the top side, you know, a hood comes down over the IC and heats it to melt the solder balls, and you're probably not going to be able to see. You might just be able to, if I could try and focus on my hand a little bit there. Can you see the little points under here? So yeah, those can crack, especially with modern lead-free solder. Now, recent modern lead-free solder is better. I think it was Alex actually over at Terra Onion was telling me the compounds things they use are better now. So you don't suffer with cracked joints quite as much as you did, but this was kind of an era as we moved into BGA, where devices started getting a lot hotter and they need a lot more pins, and that's why they use BGA, because you need an awful lot of pins there. And I think for assembly, it's easier for them to manufacture these to quickly stick a chip on, rather than having through hole. You know, you've got chances of pins being damaged. It's a complication, especially when you've got lots and lots and lots of pins. So BGA is the preferred manufacturing sort of way that these things have gone on, you know, with modern devices. But the points can crack. So, you know, there's a chance we've got a bad BGA point under something here. My suspicion is one of these RAMs have died, actually. I mean, it could be that one, but I suspect this is a RAM issue. Anyway, I'll continue inspecting around on the top and the bottom side, see if I can see any other damage, but yeah, I think it's game over for this board as things stand. So, cleaning up a little bit and further inspecting around, you can see, I think this is CLK. Is it CLK? Yeah, I think that's some sort of clock generator. You know, it's going to divide the master clock down here. So, you know, that could be a possibility. This I'm not sure about. It could be a serial EEPROM. It could be, that could contain the OS for this, if you like. So that could be a fault. I mean, either of those could be a fault. We've got, I think that's just like a regulator or something. We know the voltages are okay on here, so it's not going to be that. And then down here, this MX device here is marked RTC, so that is the real-time clock chip, hence why it's next to this clock crystal here. This I'm not sure about. I think it's got a Texas Instruments marking on it, actually. So it could just be some sort of logic, like a 245 or something like that, got no idea. Similarly with that 5-pin device there, I'm not sure. Before I forget, any of these components marked FIL, it's worth just checking, making sure you've got a very low resistance, like almost should be a short. It's just an inductor, I think, you know, like a ferrite bead. But they're marked FIL on the board, FIL and then the number. And there's quite a few of them in various places, but sometimes those can go open circuit. In this case, though, they're all alright. Yeah, I don't see anything at all. I don't see any clues as to what might be the cause of the failure on this. There's a couple more chips here. Let's have a quick look at these. Yeah, I'm guessing because of the proximity to the video side of things here, this is the video encoder actually. You know, it's producing, perhaps got some digital signals going here. They might be going straight from the GPU or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, the analog video outputs and stuff, that's going to be to do with that. And then this down here is marked, I don't know if you can see it, amp doll. So I'm guessing that's the audio op amp. You know, your audio signals are going through there and being amplified. But yeah, there's no clues as to what may have failed on here. So like I say, the obvious thing would be, if you've got a decent scope now, to scope the stuff around here to make sure you've got clocks, because it could just be this chip here. But then again, I think you're only going to get that from another Nintendo GameCube actually. I'm not sure whether that is a serial EEPROM, because it seems to be connected to the thing down here, so it might just be some little buffer IC or something, you know, some standard CMOS or TTL logic. There's quite a few diodes, you could test some of those I guess, but I think if we had a faulty diode or something somewhere, we'd perhaps see a problem with voltages. I mean, maybe not necessarily, it depends where it's used. You know, there's loads of little transistors, you know, one of these little service mounted transistors could have failed. It's unlikely though, it's unlikely. As I say, I think my guess is RAM. I think RAM, or a bad BGA connection. But I mean, if I get another one of these, I might do. We can do a little bit of chip swapping. I could, you know, swap certainly that clock chip there, see if that solves it. I do think we're getting the main clocks, because, or some of the main clocks, because these are getting hot, and as I say, I don't think they get hot without a clock driving it. So the other thing you can try with something like this, but you're in the dark really, it's a wild guess. You know, my guess is a RAM failure, and I think it's that the RAM that's marked A RAM, which I presume is a synchronous RAM, and I think that's going to be the main RAM. The other two BGA mounted ones, which I've just tried this on here, I think are video related actually. And I suspect if we had a bad connection on that, it would manifest in graphical issues. We'd at least get some sort of behaviour, maybe initialise the drive but have no video output or something. But you know, you could heat for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes like this on the underside here, but you need to make sure you've got pressure from the underneath. I've still got the heatsink on the underside here, just try and hold, you know, to keep the thing, and you've got to keep it level, you know, it keeps a bit of pressure on there. An ideal thing would be to try and clamp it actually, to use the screw mounts here with little nuts on, to use the heatsink just to hold it super tight while you do something like this. But yeah, heating this way, you know, the heat is not always going to go through to the other side very well. But if there is you know, a bad connection there, doing something like this could actually get some life back out of it. It might not be reliable. I just want to rule it out. It's not going to cause any harm just by going over this for a few minutes on the underside here. And you never know. There's a slim shot, like 5% chance it might spring back to life, and if it does, even if it's just intermittent, at least we know where the fault actually is. But as I say, I don't think this is going to make any difference at all. I think we've got failure somewhere, and of course, it could be the chip could have actually failed, the CPU could have failed, the GPU could have failed. Well, it didn't make any difference, and I didn't expect it to be honest. It was a long shot. One thing I would say is I think that technique worked very well actually, because this heatsink was so hot you couldn't even touch it. And there's no direct connection. The connections are only between the chips. So, you know, at the point where I was reheating the GPU here, this was ludicrously hot actually. Even after I'd let it cool down for 4 or 5 minutes. So, as thick as the board is, heating from the underside there can be quite a good technique if you did have a bad BGA connection. I might get hold of another GameCube, I think, and I might have a go at swapping the ARAM there, because, I don't know, I've just kind of got an instinct that's telling me that this could just be a RAM fault. It could be as simple as that. CPU can't boot properly because of bad RAM. But, you know, thinking things through again, if that was the main RAM, it's an awful long way away from the CPU. So, it might not be. That might not be like the main work RAM. It could be something completely different. I'm just looking on a wiki page here, and it's saying there's 43 meg of non-unified RAM. I think that means it's shared, actually. And it's saying two 12 meg modules MOSIS. That's what those were here. You know, there's two BGA mounted RAMs under the heatsink here. So, yeah, the CPU and the GPU share those by the looks of things. It does say there's an additional 3 meg embedded of SRAM cache within Flipper, which is the GPU, which sits in the middle there. So there's 3 meg of RAM there used by the GPU, 2 megs of frame buffer, the other 1 meg for textures or something, I think. Then goes on to 16 meg DRAM used as I/O buffer for the audio drive. Now I don't think that's on this board, I think that's on the actual DVD board here, I suspect. I mean, it could be, no, I don't think it's that. I think that's the audio RAM, because under the audio section it says there's an external audio RAM, 16 megabytes of DRAM at 81 megahertz, and I think that's what that is there, actually. I think that's the audio RAM. And there you go, I froze that there for you to see it a bit clearer, but yeah, it's a nice sine wave there, so that crystal's okay. So I can't do any more with this for the moment. I mean, I will get another board, and I'll see if we can do anything with the clock, because that's, you know, still not out of the realms of possibility. They made a little chip down here, the clock chip. We could swap that out. I could swap the main crystal, but I don't think this would be getting hot if we didn't have clocks and things there. It's going to be an internal fault to one of the main chips, I would think. Can you see that? Just about. You could get some flux on there and retin that, but bear in mind you need to be very quick, hardly any temperature at all, and just sort of flick over them. So I did exactly as I described there. I got a little bit of flux on. Hopefully you can see. It's not too bad. It looks worse here actually than it does up close with the magnifier. But I retinned those because they were absolutely awful. But yeah, hopefully you can see they're okay. It's a bit dirty here between those two pins, but there's no joins, no shorts or anything there. And the main thing is that can be reused. You know, I can attach that now and it'll make a good connection. So all reassembled now. It is rare for me to not be able to repair something, but as you get onto newer generation of systems, the likelihood of me being able to repair is reduced because of the BGA, you know, the ball grid array there. You need the right equipment. It can be super hard working on things like this. There are people out there that can do it, you know, at home and stuff. One of the things you need is an underboard IR heater, you know, to be able to heat the board consistently whilst you're heating the top side of the board. And then the other thing, obviously, is the right stencils. So, you know, you can get a stencil that's got all of the little ball holes there, you know, and you can get the right size solder balls, and you can reball one of the chips there. So I don't think that's out of the realms of my capability. It's just having the right equipment and the, you know, the space and having a bit of practice. That jet button there's not so clever. Can you see that? It's a bit recessed. So anyway, I thought it was useful to cover this in this video anyway. I do cover my failures as well as my successes. It's a bit annoying, but this is just going to be used for spares. You know, I've not even bothered cleaning it up or anything, or cleaning any of the corrosion, but what we do know is the regulator board's alright, the driver's okay. You know, I played a few games and stuff on it, it was working fine. So the optical part of this is fine in here, and the motor, you know, you could take the whole drive, just plug it straight into another unit. We may revisit this in future. I might have a go, if I'm daring enough, at removing one of both the RAMs actually, because I think, in probability-wise, it's going to be one of those two RAMs. But then again, it's just a guess. It's just speculation. You know, it could be CPU, it could be clocks, it could be GPU, it could be absolutely anything. Until you start scoping something like this, you're totally in the dark. But there are no schematics for this. I did have a look. There's no service manual out on the wild at the moment, and there's no schematics. So yeah, you're in the dark if you work on the motherboard on one of these. Anyway, I do hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.